Here's to the lawyer who spends his nights working on another man's wife.
The fork stopped halfway to my mouth when Monica said it. Just like that, over Tuesday night meatloaf, my wife of 18 years dropped the bomb that would change everything. "I've been having fantasies about you, me, and Trent together," she said, cutting her meat with surgical precision. "Actually, I invited him over tonight to discuss it." The doorbell rang. Perfect, terrible timing. I'm Jack Morrison, 43 years old, former Golden Gloves boxer turned insurance adjuster. I've seen enough car wrecks and house fires to know when something's about to explode. The smug smile spreading across Monica's face told me I was sitting in the blast zone. "That must be him now," she said, dabbing her lips with the cloth napkin I'd ironed that morning. Because, apparently, I iron napkins now. Our daughter Lily didn't even look up from her phone. 17 years old and already an expert at pretending her family wasn't completely messed up. Smart kid. "You invited him here?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest like steam in a pressure cooker. "To our house to discuss your fantasies?" Monica's green eyes sparkled with something that wasn't love. Hadn't been love for a long time, I realized. "Don't be so dramatic, Jack. We're all adults here." The doorbell rang again, longer this time, insistent. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor I'd refinished myself 3 summers ago. Back when I thought this marriage was worth saving. Back when I thought Monica appreciated the blood, sweat, and tears I'd poured into making this house a home. "If he walks through that door," I said quietly, "I'm going to confront him." Monica laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, Jack, you're so possessive. It's 2023, not 1953. People explore their romantic side now." "Mom, gross," Lily muttered, finally looking up from her phone. "Can I eat at Sarah's?" "Finish your dinner, sweetheart," Monica said sweetly. Then to me, "Are you going to answer the door, or should I?" I walked to the front door, my hands clenched into fists. Through the frosted glass, I could see Trent's outline. Tall, lean, probably wearing one of those expensive suits Monica was always complimenting. Trent Blackwood, junior partner at Morrison & Associates. Yeah, same last name as me, but no relation. Just another cosmic joke in the crap show my life had become. I yanked the door open. "Hey, Jack!" Trent flashed his $1,000,000 smile, the one that probably melted panties in courtrooms across Maine. "Monica invited me for dinner. Hope you don't mind." He was holding a bottle of wine. A nice bottle. Probably cost more than I made in a day adjusting claims for fender benders and kitchen fires. "Actually, I do mind," I said. His smile faltered. "Oh, well, maybe we could..." I grabbed him by his silk tie and yanked him into the garage, slamming the door behind us. The automatic garage door was closed, giving us privacy. My old boxing heavy bag hung in the corner, next to the workbench where I'd built Lily's first bicycle. "Let me explain something to you, Trent," I said, backing him against my workbench. Tools rattled. "I don't care how many billable hours you've logged with my wife. I don't care about her fantasies. But if you think you're walking into my house to discuss messing with my wife over pot roast, you're dumber than you look." I picked up a crowbar from the workbench, not to use it, just to make a point. "And trust me," I continued, "you look pretty foolish right now." Trent's face had gone pale. "Jack, man, I think there's been a misunderstanding." The only misunderstanding is Monica thinking I'd sit there like a cuck while she planned a threesome at the dinner table. I tapped the crowbar against my palm. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your fancy wine and your fancy suit and get the heck off my property. If I see you here again, you'll leave in a wheelchair. We clear?" The garage door to the house opened. Monica stood there, hands on her hips, looking more annoyed than concerned. "Jack, what are you doing?" "Taking out the trash," I said, not taking my eyes off Trent. Trent straightened his tie, trying to salvage some dignity. "Maybe we should talk about this another time, Monica." "There won't be another time," I said. Monica's laugh was sharp and cold. "You're being ridiculous, Jack. Trent is a colleague, a friend." "Friends don't usually discuss intimate fantasies over family dinner," I replied. Trent edged toward the main garage door. I hit the button and it rumbled open. Our neighbor Barb was getting her mail across the street. She waved, then noticed the tension and quickly looked away. "This isn't over," Monica said as Trent hurried to his BMW. I watched him drive away, tires squealing slightly. Amateur. In my boxing days, I'd learned that the real fight starts after the first punch is thrown. "You're pathetic," Monica said behind me. Maybe next time I'll invite more friends. I turned to face my wife. She stood in the doorway like a queen surveying her disappointing kingdom. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless despite the late hour. She'd always been beautiful. Too bad beauty was only skin deep. "You want a war, Monica?" I said quietly. "You'll get one." She smirked and walked back into the house, leaving me alone in the garage with my tools, my heavy bag, and the growing realization that my marriage wasn't just over, it had been dead for months, maybe years. I just hadn't smelled the rot yet. My phone buzzed, a text from Barb. "Everything okay over there?" I typed back. "Just getting started." The next morning, Monica acted like nothing had happened. She sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone and sipping coffee from the mug I'd bought her last Christmas. "World's greatest wife," it said. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm thinking of redecorating the bedroom," she said without looking up. "Something more modern, less masculine." I was making eggs for Lily's breakfast, trying to maintain some normalcy in our rapidly deteriorating household. "Masculine? You mean the furniture I built with my own hands?" "It's very rustic," Monica said, finally meeting my eyes. "But I'm thinking we need a change. Fresh start." Lily stumbled into the kitchen, earbuds in, backpack slung over one shoulder. She grabbed a piece of toast and headed for the door. "Breakfast," I called after her. "I'll eat at school," she mumbled. "Lily, sit down and eat with your family," Monica said sharply. Our daughter stopped, pulled out one earbud, and looked between us. Even at 17, she could read the room better than most adults. "Are you guys getting divorced?" she asked bluntly. The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Monica's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. I kept scrambling eggs, the only sound the sizzle of butter in the pan. "Don't be dramatic," Monica finally said. "Your father and I are just exploring new dynamics in our relationship." "Gross, Mom. Just say you're having a midlife crisis like a normal person." I couldn't help but smile. Lily had inherited my sarcasm and Monica's sharp tongue. Dangerous combination. After Lily left for school, Monica disappeared into her home office to prepare for court. I knew better. She was texting Trent, probably planning their next move. I'd seen the signs for months. Late nights at the office, new lingerie hidden in the back of her drawer, whispered phone calls that ended when I entered the room. I should have confronted her then, should have demanded the truth. Instead, I'd chosen to believe her lies because the alternative was admitting that everything I'd built was crumbling. But last night had changed everything. The mask was off. I drove to the boxing gym where I'd trained in my 20s before Monica convinced me that fighting was beneath someone with my intelligence. Mick's gym hadn't changed much, still smelled like sweat, leather, and broken dreams. The old man himself was working the heavy bag. His movements still sharp, despite being north of 70. "Well, I'll be damned," Mick said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a towel. "Jack Morrison. Thought you were too fancy for us working-class types these days." "Never too fancy for you, Mick." He studied my face with the eyes of someone who'd seen a lot of fighters, both in the ring and out. "Trouble at home?" I told him about Monica's fantasy dinner, about Trent, about the slow dissolution of my marriage. Mick listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or grunting in understanding. "Women like that," he said when I finished. "They don't respect weakness. You've been playing defense for years, letting her call the shots. Time to go on offense." "I threatened Trent with a crowbar. Pretty sure that counts as offense," Mick laughed. "That was just a warning shot. Real fighting happens up here." He tapped his temple. "You're smarter than both of them combined. Use that." I spent an hour working the heavy bag, my muscles remembering the rhythm even after all these years. Each punch was Monica's smug smile. Each combination was Trent's entitled grin. By the time I finished, my knuckles were raw, but my head was clear. When I got home, Monica was getting ready for some work function. She'd laid out a black dress on our bed, new, expensive, and cut to show off assets I'd apparently stopped appreciating. "I'll be late tonight," she said, applying lipstick in the bathroom mirror. "Office party? Will Trent be there?" Her hand paused for just a second. "Probably. He works at the firm, Jack." "Right. Silly me." She turned to face me, her green eyes flashing with irritation. "Are you going to be weird about this? Because I won't tolerate jealousy and paranoia." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said. "Have fun." After she left, I did something I'd never done before. I went through her things. Not proud of it, but desperate times and all that. In her nightstand drawer, under a stack of legal briefs, I found a receipt from the Marriott downtown. Room service for two, champagne, strawberries. The date was last Tuesday when she'd supposedly been working late on the Henderson case. My hand shook as I photographed the receipt with my phone. 18 years of marriage, and it had come to this, gathering evidence like I was investigating an insurance fraud. But the real smoking tool was in her laptop bag. She'd forgotten to close her email, and there it was. Months of correspondence with Trent. Not just work emails, but personal messages that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again," read one from last week. "Jack suspects nothing. He's too busy playing handyman," read another. The worst part wasn't the explicit details of their affair. It was how they talked about me, like I was a joke, a pathetic husband too stupid to see what was happening under his own roof. I printed everything, every email, every text message thread I could access, every receipt and credit card statement that told the story of my wife's double life. The evidence filled a manila folder that I locked in my toolbox in the garage. Monica came home at 2 in the morning, reeking of wine and cologne that wasn't mine. She slipped into bed thinking I was asleep. "How was the party?" I asked quietly. She stiffened. "Fine. Boring, actually. Trent there. I don't remember. I was networking with potential clients." I rolled over to face her in the dark. "Monica, do you love me?" The question seemed to surprise her. She was quiet for a long moment. "That's a complicated question, Jack." "No, it's not. It's the simplest question in the world." Another long pause. Then, "I love the life we've built. I love our family." "That's not what I asked." She turned away from me. "I'm tired, Jack. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" But I already had my answer, and tomorrow I was going to start doing something about it. Monica's work party was the following Friday at some upscale restaurant downtown. She'd made it clear I wasn't invited. "It's really more of a networking thing, honey." But Mick had other ideas. "You're going," he said during our training session that afternoon. "Time to see what you're really dealing with." "She doesn't want me there." "Since when do you need permission to attend your wife's work events?" He had a point. In the early years of our marriage, I'd been Monica's +1 to every firm function. Somewhere along the way, I'd become an embarrassment she preferred to hide. I showered, put on my best suit, the navy one Monica had picked out for her law school graduation, and drove downtown. The restaurant was one of those places where the portions are tiny and the prices are astronomical. Through the window, I could see Monica holding court near the bar, laughing at something Trent was whispering in her ear. The hostess tried to stop me, but I brushed past her. "I'm with the Morrison and Associates party." Monica's face went white when she saw me. Trent, on the other hand, looked like he might bolt for the emergency exit. "Jack," Monica said, her voice tight with forced cheer. "What a surprise!" "Thought I'd surprise my wife," I said loudly enough for nearby conversations to pause. "Hope you don't mind me crashing the party." Several of Monica's colleagues turned to watch. I recognized most of them from previous functions, back when I was still considered worthy of inclusion. "Of course not," Monica said through gritted teeth. "How thoughtful." I walked to the bar and ordered a whiskey. Neat. The bartender was a young guy with sleeve tattoos and the kind of smirk that said he'd seen plenty of domestic drama play out over his bar. "Make it a double," I added. Monica appeared at my elbow. "What are you doing here, Jack?" "Supporting my wife's career? Isn't that what good husbands do? You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I? Or am I embarrassing you?" Before she could answer, Trent materialized on my other side. Up close, he was even prettier than I'd remembered. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, probably perfect abs under that tailored shirt. "Hey, Jack," he said, extending his hand like we were old friends. "Glad you could make it." I looked at his hand but didn't take it. "Trent, still breathing, I see." His smile faltered. Monica stepped between us. "Why don't you get some food, honey?" she suggested. "The shrimp is supposed to be excellent." "I'm not hungry for shrimp," I said, my eyes never leaving Trent's face. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Other party guests were starting to stare openly now. Monica's boss, a silver-haired shark named Patterson, was watching from across the room with obvious interest. That's when inspiration struck. I picked up my drink and pretended to stumble. Accidentally, dumping the entire contents down the front of Trent's pristine white shirt and expensive suit jacket. "Oh, crap," I said loudly. "I'm so sorry, man. How clumsy of me." Trent jumped back, whiskey dripping from his chin. "What the heck?" "Honest mistake," I said, grabbing napkins from the bar. "Here, let me help you clean up." I started dabbing at his shirt, pressing harder than necessary. He tried to push my hands away, but I kept at it, making the stain worse. "It's fine," he said through clenched teeth. "I'll handle it." No, I insist. It's the least I can do." I looked around the room at all the watching faces. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to propose a toast." Monica grabbed my arm. "Jack, don't—" But I was already raising my empty glass. "To Trent Blackwood, junior partner and my wife's close colleague. May his performance in the courtroom be better than his performance in other areas." The room went dead silent. Trent's face turned red. Monica looked like she might faint. "Here's to the man who's been working so hard with my wife on those late-night briefs," I continued, "really putting in the extra hours, if you know what I mean." Patterson started moving toward us, but I wasn't finished. "And to my loving wife, Monica, who's always believed in exploring new legal strategies, sometimes with multiple parties involved." That's when Trent lunged at me. I saw it coming a mile away. Years of boxing training kicked in, and I sidestepped his clumsy swing, letting his momentum carry him into the bar. Bottles rattled. The bartender swore. "Gentlemen, please," Patterson barked, but the damage was done. Security appeared from somewhere, two big guys in cheap suits who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. They grabbed Trent by his ruined jacket and started escorting him toward the door. "This isn't over," he snarled at me. "Yeah, it is," I replied calmly. Monica followed them out, leaving me alone at the bar with a room full of lawyers who were suddenly very interested in their drinks. The bartender looked at me with something approaching respect. "Another double?" he asked. "Make it a triple." My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Dad, Mom's work party is all over Instagram. Are you okay?" I looked around the room at Monica's colleagues, all of them whispering and stealing glances at me. Tomorrow, this story would be all over the legal community. Monica's reputation, so carefully cultivated over the years, had just taken a major hit, and I was just getting started. I typed back to Lily. "Never better, sweetheart. Never better." The fallout from the restaurant incident was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, Monica wasn't speaking to me. She'd moved into the guest bedroom and was communicating through Lily, who was clearly uncomfortable being caught in the middle. "Mom says you need to apologize to Trent," Lily told me over breakfast. "Mom can tell me that herself," I replied, not looking up from my coffee. "She also says you're having some kind of breakdown." Now I did look up. "What do you think, Lily? Am I having a breakdown?" My daughter studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd inherited both parents' analytical minds. "I think Mom's been acting weird for months. And you finally noticed?" Smart kid. Too smart for her own good, maybe. Monica emerged from her office looking like she'd slept about as well as I had. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "We need to talk," she said. "Now you want to talk?" "Not here," she glanced at Lily. "Somewhere private." We ended up at the diner on Route 1, the same place where we'd had our first date 20 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. We sat in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee growing cold between us while we stared at each other like strangers. "You humiliated me," Monica said finally. "I humiliated you? That's rich. In front of my colleagues, my boss. Do you have any idea what this could do to my career?" I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. The pictures of her hotel receipts, the screenshots of her emails with Trent, the credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to. "Do you have any idea what this could do to our marriage?" I asked, sliding the phone across the table. Monica's face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, anger, fear, and finally, something that might have been relief. "You went through my things. You left them lying around. Sloppy work for a lawyer." She pushed the phone back to me without scrolling through the evidence. "So what now? You want a divorce?" "Do you—" Another long pause. The diner was nearly empty except for a trucker at the counter and an elderly couple sharing a piece of pie. Normal people living normal lives, probably not sitting in diners confronting 18 years of lies. "I want you to fight for me," Monica said quietly. The admission caught me off guard. "What?" "All these months I've been waiting for you to notice, to care, to do something other than fix the stupid sink and pretend everything was fine." "So you had an affair to get my attention?" "I had an affair because I felt invisible in my own marriage." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. When was the last time you looked at me, really looked at me, like I was something more than just another household appliance? I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat. Because maybe somewhere deep down, I knew she was right. We'd fallen into a routine so comfortable it had become a prison. Trent makes me feel alive, she continued. He sees me as a woman, not just a wife and mother. Trent sees you as a conquest, I said. Trust me, I've read his emails. You're not his first married woman, and you won't be his last. Something flickered across her face. Doubt, maybe, or hurt. At least he tries, she said. We sat in silence for a while, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Monica reached across the table and touched my hand. It doesn't have to end like this, Jack. We could try counseling, work things out. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost let myself hope that we could find our way back to whatever we'd had in the beginning. But then I remembered the cruel laughter in her voice when she'd invited Trent to dinner, the way she'd looked at me like I was pathetic. What about Trent? It's over with him. It has to be, after what happened at the restaurant. Because you got caught or because you realized it was wrong? She pulled her hand back. Does it matter? Yeah, Monica, it matters. She looked out the window at the parking lot, where a young couple was getting into a beat-up Honda, laughing about something. They looked happy, in love, the way we used to look. I can't promise it won't happen again, she said finally. I can't promise I won't get bored or lonely or stupid, but I can promise to try. It wasn't enough. Not anymore. I want you out, I said. Her head snapped back to me. What? I want you out of the house, tonight. Jack, be reasonable. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe Trent has a spare room. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. The house is in my name, remember? You were too busy with law school when we bought it, so I handled all the paperwork. It was a low blow, and we both knew it, but 18 years of marriage had taught me exactly where to aim to cause maximum damage. Monica's face hardened. Fine, but I'm taking Lily with me. Like heck you are. She's my daughter, too. She's 17 years old. In Maine, she can choose which parent to live with. Want to bet which one she picks? We stared at each other across the table, two people who'd once promised to love each other until death do us part, now calculating how much damage we could inflict. This is really how you want to play it? Monica asked. You started this game when you invited your boyfriend to dinner. I'm just playing to win. She stood up, threw a $5 bill on the table, and walked out without another word. I watched her drive away in her BMW, probably heading straight to Trent's apartment to cry on his shoulder. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won something, but you have no idea what you've started. I showed the message to the waitress, a middle-aged woman named Dolores, who'd been working at the diner since before I was born. Sounds like someone's mad at you, honey, she said, refilling my coffee cup. Yeah, I said, and I'm just getting started making them madder. Monica moved in with her best friend, Janet, a social media manager who treated drama like currency and always seemed to have her phone out, recording everything. Janet lived in a trendy downtown apartment that screamed trying too hard, exposed brick walls, industrial lighting, and furniture that looked expensive but uncomfortable. I knew this because Lily told me. Despite Monica's attempts to turn our daughter against me, Lily had chosen to stay at the house. Partly because her friends were all in our school district, but mostly because she was tired of her mother's BS. Mom's acting crazy, Lily said one evening while we ate takeout Chinese on the couch. She keeps crying and saying you ruined her life. What do you think? Lily considered this while twirling lo mein around her chopsticks. I think she ruined her own life when she started cheating on you. I'm not stupid, Dad. I knew something was going on. You never said anything. Would it have mattered? Adults never listen to kids about this stuff anyway. She had a point. At 17, Lily had already developed a cynicism that probably came from watching her parents' marriage slowly disintegrate. Are you okay with all this? I asked. She shrugged. Are you going to start dating other people? The question caught me off guard. I haven't really thought about it. Good, because that would be weird. At least wait until I graduate. I laughed despite everything. Deal. The next few days fell into a strange rhythm. I went to work, adjusting insurance claims and pretending my personal life wasn't imploding. Lily went to school and came home with updates on Monica's increasingly erratic behavior, and somewhere across town, Monica and Trent were probably plotting their next move. I didn't have to wait long to find out what that would be. Thursday night, I was in the garage working on an old motorcycle I'd been restoring when 3 cars pulled into my driveway. Monica's BMW, Trent's Audi, and a Toyota I didn't recognize. Car doors slammed, and I could hear voices, angry voices, approaching. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and stepped outside. Monica was leading a small army. Trent, Janet, and 2 other women I recognized from the law firm. They looked like they were ready for war. "Jack," Monica called out, her voice carrying across the yard. "We need to talk." "We already talked. At the diner, remember?" "This is different." They arranged themselves on my front lawn like a firing squad. Trent hung back, probably remembering our last encounter. Smart move. "What's this about, Monica?" "It's about you spreading lies and trying to destroy my reputation." "I haven't told any lies. Everything I said at the restaurant was true." Janet stepped forward, her phone already out and recording. "You attacked Trent. That's battery. We have witnesses." "I spilled a drink on him. Accidents happen." "It wasn't an accident," Trent said, finally finding his voice. "You deliberately—" "Prove it," I interrupted. One of the other women, a redhead whose name I couldn't remember, spoke up. "Monica's told us everything. About your controlling behavior, your threats, your refusal to let her explore her romantic freedom." I almost laughed. "Is that what she told you? That I'm controlling?" "Aren't you?" Janet asked, still recording. "You kicked her out of her own house. You're trying to turn her daughter against her. Her daughter chose to stay with me, and it's my house, not hers." "That's not how marriage works," the redhead said. "Community property doesn't apply when one spouse commits adultery," I finished. "I'm sure Monica can explain the legal implications to you. She is a lawyer, after all." Monica's face was flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You're being vindictive, Jack. This isn't about the law. It's about doing what's right." "You want to talk about what's right? Let's talk about honesty, commitment, respect. You know, all those things you promised when we got married." "People change," Trent said. "Monica's evolved beyond your narrow definition of marriage." That did it. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he instinctively backed up. "Evolved? Is that what you call being with your coworker's wife?" "Jack!" Monica snapped. "No, let's be honest here. Your boyfriend thinks adultery is evolution. I think it's just being a selfish piece of crap." Janet was practically bouncing with excitement, her phone capturing every word. This would probably be all over social media within the hour. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Monica said. "All we want is a civilized conversation about how to move forward." "Civilized? You brought a camera crew to my front yard to ambush me. How is that civilized?" "We're documenting your behavior for the divorce proceedings," the redhead explained. "Your threats, your aggression." "What threats? What aggression? I've been a model of restraint considering my wife invited her boyfriend to dinner and then moved in with her girlfriend when I objected." I looked directly at Janet's phone camera. "For the record, I haven't threatened anyone. I haven't been violent or aggressive. I simply refuse to be a loser in my own home. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it." The group exchanged glances. This clearly wasn't going the way they'd planned. "We're trying to be reasonable," Monica said. "No, you're trying to manipulate me into accepting an unacceptable situation. There's a difference." "So what do you want?" Trent asked. I looked at each of them in turn. Monica with her righteous indignation, Trent with his entitled smirk, Janet with her phone, the other women with their judgment. "I want you off my property," I said quietly. "All of you. Now." "We're not done talking," Monica said. "Yeah, we are." I walked back into the garage and hit the button to close the door. Through the window, I watched them argue among themselves for a few minutes before finally getting back in their cars and driving away. My phone rang almost immediately. Barb from across the street. "You okay over there, Jack? Looked like quite a powwow on your lawn." "Just Monica being dramatic." "Well, if you need anything, you know where to find me. I've got a baseball bat and no patience for BS." I smiled for the first time in days. "Thanks, Barb. I'll keep that in mind." After she hung up, I sat in my garage surrounded by tools and motorcycle parts, thinking about allies and enemies. Monica had her little army of enablers, people who would support her no matter what she did because they shared her twisted worldview. But I had something better. I had people who understood right from wrong. People who believed in loyalty and commitment. People who wouldn't abandon their principles for the sake of being progressive or evolved. I was going to need them for what came next. The final confrontation came at the annual charity gala for the Maine Children's Hospital, an event Monica had been planning for months before our marriage imploded. She was on the organizing committee, which meant she couldn't skip it without damaging her professional reputation even further. I wasn't supposed to be there. My invitation had been mysteriously lost in the mail, according to Janet, who was handling publicity for the event. But Mick had a solution. "My nephew owns the catering company," he explained during our training session. "You're working security for the night." The gala was held at the Portland Harbor Hotel, a fancy waterfront venue where Maine's legal and business elite gathered to write tax-deductible checks and pat themselves on the back. I arrived early, wearing a black suit and an earpiece that made me look official. Monica looked stunning in a silver dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She was holding court near the silent auction tables, playing the role of grieving wife whose husband had abandoned her during a difficult time. Trent hovered nearby like a bodyguard, probably thinking he was protecting her from me. Janet was there too, of course, along with Monica's other supporters from the law firm. They'd formed a protective circle around her, whispering and shooting dirty looks at anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions about her personal life. I stayed in the background for the first hour, watching and waiting. The hotel's security team knew I was there. Mick's nephew had vouched for me, but they didn't know why. As far as they were concerned, I was just extra muscle in case any of the wealthy donors got too drunk and rowdy. The speeches started at 9. Various community leaders took the podium to talk about the importance of supporting sick children. Monica was scheduled to speak last as the committee chairwoman. That's when I made my move. I walked to the back of the ballroom and found the hotel's AV technician, a college-aged kid who looked bored out of his mind. "Emergency," I told him, flashing a fake security badge I'd made at Kinko's. "We need to check the projection system for malware. Someone called in a threat about hacking the screens." The kid looked confused, but handed over the laptop that controlled the room's displays. "I don't see anything unusual. Let me take a look." I plugged in a flash drive containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered about Monica's affair. Emails, photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts, everything that told the story of her double life. "Looks clean," I told the kid, handing back the laptop. "False alarm." I returned to my position near the wall and waited. Monica took the podium to thunderous applause. She looked radiant under the spotlights, every inch the successful professional woman who'd overcome personal adversity to help sick children. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "As many of you know, this cause is deeply personal to me. When my own daughter was hospitalized with pneumonia 3 years ago, I saw firsthand how important this facility is to our community." The audience was eating it up. Monica had always been a compelling speaker, able to command a room with her presence and conviction. "Family is everything," she continued. "The bonds we forge, the commitments we make, the trust we build. These are the foundations of a healthy society." That's when I activated the presentation I'd loaded onto the system. The screens around the room suddenly filled with Monica's emails to Trent. Explicit messages detailing their intimate encounters, mocking comments about me, plans for future rendezvous. The audience gasped and murmured, trying to process what they were seeing. Monica froze at the podium, her face draining of color. "The trust we build," I said loudly from the back of the room, "is sacred. When that trust is broken, when those commitments are abandoned, the whole foundation crumbles." All eyes turned to me as I walked down the center aisle toward the stage. Monica gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Ladies and gentlemen," I continued, "I'd like to tell you about family bonds and commitment, about what happens when someone decides that marriage vows are just suggestions." Security was starting to move toward me, but they were confused. I was supposed to be one of them. "For 18 years, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system, "I believed in the woman standing at that podium. I built her a home with my own hands. I put her through law school. I raised her daughter and supported her career." The screens were now showing hotel receipts and credit card statements. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. "And in return," I continued, "she invited her lover to dinner at our kitchen table and asked me to participate in her intimate fantasies." The room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Monica tried to speak, but no words came out. Trent was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the stage. Janet was frantically taking pictures with her phone, probably already composing social media posts about how I was harassing Monica. "This is harassment," someone shouted from the audience. "No," I replied calmly. "This is truth. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, when you confuse patience with stupidity." I reached the stage and climbed the steps. Monica backed away from the podium, her silver dress shimmering under the lights. "You wanted everyone to see you as the victim," I said, taking the microphone. "The poor wife whose husband couldn't handle her romantic liberation. But victims don't lie and cheat and manipulate. Victims don't destroy their families for the sake of a midlife crisis." The screens were now showing photographs I'd taken outside Trent's apartment building. Monica's car parked there overnight, the two of them kissing in the lobby, evidence of a relationship that had been going on for months. "So here's the truth," I announced to the stunned audience. "My wife is an adulteress. Her lover is a predator who specializes in married women, and her friends are enablers who think betrayal is empowerment." Trent finally reached the stage, his face red with rage. "That's enough." He swung at me just like he had at the restaurant. But this time I was ready. I caught his wrist, twisted his arm behind his back, and forced him to his knees in front of 300 of Maine's most influential people. "The funny thing about bullies," I said into the microphone while holding Trent in an arm lock, "is that they only pick fights they think they can win, but sometimes they miscalculate." Security was finally closing in, but I wasn't finished. Monica wanted a new life, free from the constraints of marriage and commitment. "Well, congratulations, honey, you got it." I released Trent, who scrambled away from me like a frightened animal. Monica was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks as the screens continued displaying the evidence of her betrayal. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I hope you'll still support the Children's Hospital. They do important work, and they shouldn't suffer because of one person's moral failures." I handed the microphone back to Monica and walked off the stage. Security followed me, but they didn't try to stop me. What was the point? The damage was done. As I reached the exit, I turned back for one last look. Monica was still at the podium, trying to salvage some dignity from the wreckage of her reputation. Trent was nowhere to be seen, probably already in his car, fleeing the scene. Janet and the other enablers were clustered around Monica, but their support looked hollow now, performative. The audience was filing out, their conversations animated with gossip and judgment. By tomorrow, everyone in Maine's legal community would know the truth about Monica Morrison and her affair with Trent Blackwood. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Dad, this is all over TikTok already. Are you okay?" I typed back, "Never better, sweetheart. I'll be home soon." As I walked to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over. I'd won not through violence or cruelty, but through truth. Monica had wanted to destroy our marriage in public, so I'd given her exactly what she asked for. They'd wanted a villain. I'd just given them the show of a lifetime.